light this candle, welcoming the Spirit of Jesus the Christ into our hearts and into our midst. So welcome into the light. And let us join in prayer together. Gathered together, we proclaim a welcome. Open doors, open minds, open hands, open hearts. And so we pray, may your welcoming Spirit move within and among us, opening our hearts to your vision for life. Here in this place, may grace provide, may love empower, may hope sustain, may welcome be proclaimed. On this journey we share in Jesus' name. Amen. Stand as you may too if you decide you need to wander around a bit. So, welcome. So this, of course, is the first Sunday we're reconnecting after our summer holiday. And it is good to see you all here. Wonderful to see you all here. So, I wonder this summer where you came close to the presence of God. When did you see the presence or the love of Jesus in the world around you? Was there a moment where you were moved by the Spirit? I invite you just to take a moment and turn to someone close by and just respond with them for a moment, and then we'll gather up all of our loved ones.
As I think you all know, we helped out with the Head Start's Back to School backpack program again this year. Out of the Visions Aid Fund, we donated $600 towards school supplies. And it's a 3-week program, but the week after the regular program runs, there's always a group of people who have forgotten to register or they didn't know about it or whatever, so then they come in at the last minute. And I was in the last week of August every day and helped with that. And it's very interesting, some of the people you see, and I won't go into that, but I just want to tell you that last year, Head Start packed and distributed 900 backpacks. The year before that, it was less than that. Last year it was 900, and this year it was 1,050. And I asked if the difference was the Syrian families, and the lady who's in charge of it said no, she didn't think that was it. It's just overall generally that there's more and more need. So there's your dollars at work. Thank you.
This wasn't really a wow moment for me. This was a wow moment for my son and our
this year was I got a beautiful email from Bob Christie. And
I'm hoping to show that next week at the
okay,
but you tell us.
well, the whole story was about the love that Bob and Judy have for one another and her aging story. So look forward to next week because it's a super duper gig.
Well, now I have to say yes. I was going to ask their permission whether we might share it. Was it a wow moment to experience that? Yeah. Is it okay if we share it next week? Okay.
I had trouble thinking of a wow moment. I guess I had a pretty good summer. I completed the play and completed my course and everything went well. But I was just thinking of something that happened a couple weeks ago. I was scrolling casually through Facebook, as you do, and all of a sudden I see these doors that look really, really familiar, and I sit there for like 20 minutes. I was like, these look really familiar, and it turns out it's Visions United, but it was one of my friends who I went to school with. He's a transgender guy. He goes by Nathan now, and he was just driving by with his girlfriend, and they saw them. And they're like, these are super cool. So they posted them. And then they started trending. All my friends and their family were sharing them. So we might get some more publicity and more people coming. I'm hoping more diversity, actually get that diversity that we talk about. But I was like, those are my, and I had like a fangirl moment. I was like, those are the doors. Those are my doors. Visions United, everybody thought it was great, and it was just wonderful. They said some people get it. Love is love, and they were all very happy to know that there are people out there that love people for who they are, and just are open-minded, and that's great. And it was so cool. It was like a blast from the past, and it was a blast from now. So it's kind of neat.
Thanks for sharing that. Okay, Annie.
Last night I was driving on the way back from Hampton about 5:30 around Sussex, and I saw the most beautiful rainbow. I'd never seen one as bright, a complete rainbow, but the first quarter of it was, well, you just couldn't imagine how bright it was. And it lasted, well, for a long time, and eventually you could see a double one in the back. But it was just fantastic.
I thought you were going to tell us that all the balloons were in the sky. It's the whole weekend.
No balloons in
Yeah.
On Friday, my cousin Kara had beautiful little twin girls. Their total weight was almost 13 pounds between them. And they make 5 under 4. Their oldest won't be 4 until December. And they're doing fine. She was home the next day. And their names are Lacey and Anna.
Well, congratulations. And it seems to me I knew this one was coming sooner or later.
As many of you know, Bill and I, well, I guess we didn't have much to do with it. Sarah had a baby on August 2nd, 5 pound 1 ounce, Clara Jennifer Kierstead. She had a little struggle in the beginning, and I think my big wow moment was in NICU. You cannot imagine how thankful we are for the NICU nurses and doctors. And then a week later, she's practically talking now. And she has gained, she's up to 7 pounds, 7.5 pounds already. It's only been 5 weeks.
Awesome. Well, thank you, folks, for sharing. I know that Daphne and John have a special piece of music that's it's about wow moments, really.
I believe for every drop of rain that falls, a flower grows.
I believe that somewhere in the darkest night a candle glows. I believe for everyone who goes astray, someone will come to show the way. I believe. I believe. believe above the storm, the smallest prayer will still be heard. I believe that someone in the great somewhere hears every word. Every time I hear a newborn baby cry, or touch a leaf, or see the sky, then I know why I believe. Every time I hear a newborn baby cry, or touch a leaf, or see the sky, then I know why I believe.
Thank you. Look all around you. I mean, here, look all around you. But not only here. Look all around you in your mind's eye. Who do you see? Who is searching for a home? Who is seeking a place to belong? Who can you welcome? To whom can you be Christ's presence?
Imagine one person who feels so alone. You've arrived in a new town. You don't know anyone here. You're in a new school. You're at a new job. Who will play with you on the playground? Who will you eat lunch with? Who will you chat with at break time? And who will you invite for a meal or to go to a movie? As people who follow the way of Jesus, we are asked to welcome the stranger.
In our society, there are fewer and fewer ways for people to find community, especially a community where you are accepted just as you are, where you are welcomed just because, where old and young alike gather and share meals and activities. At Visions United, we are a spiritual community, welcoming a diversity of people, celebrating and exploring in faith together, reaching out in love, daring to make a difference, one act of kindness at a time. And so we sing.
Thank you.
alone with the challenges of life. You never thought life could be so terrible. You're not sure how you can handle this tragedy, this challenge. You never thought something could destroy your faith in God. But now you wonder where God is. You wonder if there is a God. Mostly, you feel alone. So very alone. As people who follow in the way of Jesus, we are asked to rejoice with those who are rejoicing, and to weep with those who are weeping.
In our society, where do you go when you need support and care? Some people do not have extended family around to lend a hand. Many people have nowhere to turn when faced with the challenges of life. At Visions United,
We are a spiritual community,
welcoming the diversity of people, celebrating and exploring in faith together, reaching out in love, daring to make a difference, one act of kindness at a time.
Imagine one person alone trying to change the world. You believe that the world can be a better place. You want to help the environment, feed the hungry, care for those who are lost and alone. You want to support those who are sick and grieving, stop bullying and violence and war. Some days it just seems too overwhelming. Some days it seems that all your efforts are having no effect. You wonder if anyone else shares your concern. Are you alone trying to make a difference in this world? As people who follow in the way of Jesus, we know that by working together, by combining our gifts and resources, we can accomplish things that none of us can do alone.
In our society today, sometimes it seems that no one cares about making the world a better place. Sometimes it seems people are more interested in their own lives than in the lives of others. Sometimes it seems as if others have become jaded and have given up hope that things can change. But we are a people of faith. We have learned from the teachings of Jesus. At Visions United,
We are a spiritual community, welcoming the diversity of people, celebrating and exploring in faith together, reaching out in love, daring to make a difference, one act of kindness at a time.
We're all still
so imagine a community caring for each other. We come together to discover strength in community. We support one another through times of joy and sorrow. We discover that none of us is alone. We offer our gifts and ministries to one another, discovering God's Spirit working in our midst. Here, we welcome each other in Christ's name and share the hospitality of God's presence, because at Visions United,
we are a spiritual community, welcoming a diversity of people, celebrating and exploring in faith together, reaching out in love, daring to make a difference, one act of kindness at a time.
So why do we gather? Why do you choose to be here today or any Sunday? What really is church? What really is a congregation? Or what the United Church is you're going to hear more often, moving away from that word congregation to a community of faith. The United Church is going to be using that more and more to describe our gatherings, and I like that because the emphasis is not on a church or a building, but on a community. I don't know about you, but for a little bit yet, Jim. I don't know about you, but for me, this past summer gave me much to ponder in terms of the global community in which we live. I was glad to hear Karen's story. That's wonderful to hear that kind of coming together that you shared about your son and his wife, and we hope and trust so many other people who are in that situation. But there were a lot of other things this summer, specifically how we relate to each other as human beings, that for me really caused me to pause and to wonder. I mean, there's so much rhetoric of discourse in our world that divides. The events in Charlottesville, Virginia in mid-August sparked not only debate, but violence. Reminding us, too, if you were following any of that conversation, that, we in Canada, we've got a lot of work to do when it comes to racism and hatred and what people describe as white nationalism. Well, the purpose of our gathering, as we saw in those vignettes, this community of faith is to be something different. It's to hold up a different alternative of relating in our world. A way that's grounded in values like love, manifested in respect, forgiveness, reconciliation. This is the way of Jesus. The invitation to be in relationship, to embody the love of God in all of our interactions, even in the smallest of ways, that in our mission vision there, daring to make a difference. One small act of kindness at a time. Now, Jesus didn't extend this invitation to be in community together within the expectation that, that there's some perfection, some utopia that will be achieved. You know, relationships, we know, are far too messy and complicated to sustain that kind of expectation. Our human nature is far too flawed and imperfect. But it is an invitation. Years ago, I participated in and I led several small group faith studies that were entitled An Experiment in Practical Christianity. Maybe some of you were part of one of those. I always loved that title, as I think it comes closest to describing what churches or what communities of faith actually are. Our gathering together is a human and spiritual experiment in being community. An alternative vision of how possible it is to be together in spite of difference, to learn from each other, to pray and sing, laugh, and practice the way of Jesus together. And notice I said practice. We will rarely perfect. In many ways, the 21st century church, our communities of faith, are being called back to the church's very beginnings. And we have Paul's letters in our scriptures to get a sense of what that experiment, that gathering together for common witness was like. Because when you go through all of Paul's letters, even the ones attributed to him, over and over again, Paul writes to these small churches, small faith communities like ours, not grandiose big mega churches, small communities like ours, providing encouragement and addressing their disagreements, those real struggles that they had, that they encountered living together, as an alternative vision to the world of greed and violence and inequality all around them. So this morning we turn to an excerpt from one of Paul's letters as our wisdom reading today. A passage that no doubt many of you have heard before. One verse in particular at the end, you probably heard at weddings. But chapter 12 and 13 together are all about what it means to be part of this body of Christ. And so when you see a B1 or a B2 or B3, we're going to divide into some groups. So from Brianna over to Pam, voice 1. From Audrey over to Claudia, voice 2. And choir, voice 3. And so Paul writes to that small little church in Corinth. Now, dear sisters and brothers, I want to instruct you on the matter of spiritual gifts.
There is a variety of gifts, but always the same Spirit. There is a variety of ministries, but we serve the same one. There is a variety of outcomes, but the same God is working in all of them. To each person is given the manifestation of the Spirit for the common good.
The body is one, even though it has many parts. All the parts, many though they are, comprise a single body.
And so it is with Christ.
It was by one Spirit that all of us, whether we are Jews or Greeks, slaves or citizens, were baptized into one body.
And that body is not one part, it is many. The eye cannot say to the hand, I do not need you, any more than the head can say to the feet, I do not need you. And even those members of the body which seem less important are in fact indispensable.
God has so constructed the body as to give greater honor to the lowly members, that there may be no dissension in the body, but that all the members may be concerned for one another.
If one member suffers, all the members suffer with it. If one member is honored, all the members share its joy.
You then are the body of Christ, and each of you is a member of it. Set your hearts on the greater gifts.
There are in the end 3 things that last: faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love.
Now we can probably start to imagine what squabbling, what debate must have been going on in that church in Corinth that would have provoked this letter from Paul. It's the same types of things that probably go on in our own families, as well as this family we think of as church. Roland Williams, the former Archbishop of Canterbury, was the leader of the Church of England, or the worldwide Anglican community, from 2002 to 2012. And over that decade of his leadership, there was much fragmentation, threat of fragmentation within the worldwide Anglican communion. And it was especially over issues like the ordination of women as bishops, as well as the whole discussion around homosexuality. So in this little short video that's called Close But Different, Williams talks about community and friendship, and he sort of references that piece of scripture we just read.
I guess that when God breaks into our existence and we, as it were, break through the crust of our old habits, it's not just so that we can write off the debt of sin or be promised heaven. In the New Testament, it is that something changes now. We're actually able to be close to one another in a way we wouldn't otherwise be. And you look at the letters of Paul to the new communities, little communities in big towns in the Eastern Mediterranean. They're busy, hectic, commercial places. They have all kinds of religious practices and magic and superstition. They have all kinds of things on the market: sex, food, entertainment. It's not a million miles away from some other context you can name. And Paul is writing to these little groups of people who've gone against the grain and said, actually there's another way of being together. And it's a way in which we can be friends, in which we can actually respect each other, in which we can receive from one another as well, give to one another. There's a way of living together where everybody recognizes that if one person fails and suffers, it's everyone's business. That's how we can do it. It's possible. And when you think a couple of dozen people in a city of 300,000, and Paul, when he writes to them, incredibly writes as if, well, okay, you're the future. You're what it's all about.
This little enclave, or this little group.
Yeah, this little group.
Future too.
That's right. They're meeting, let's say, in somebody's house on a Saturday night for a meal. And there'll be a couple of householders, there'll be a few shopkeepers and craftsmen, there'll be a handful of domestic slaves who manage to get the night off. They never meet each other anywhere else. They're as different as could be. Everything in their society tells them you've got nothing in common.
Yes.
And Paul says, that's it, you got it. And of course they quarrel. The pictures you have in Paul's letters to the church in Corinth, it's terrible. They're each other's throats a lot of the time. They're going back to type, they're reverting to their old habits. The rich people are saying, well, actually, you stand by the door, I'll sit down and finish my meal. And there are people who bring their old ways into into the church. There's somebody who's sleeping with his stepmother. And of course it's there. You've got something so precious, so new, so different. Don't blow it.
And how do you scale that up with business principles as fast as possible?
Yeah.
Church growth, right?
Church growth, yes, yes.
Now that last comment from the interviewer was a quip. I don't know if you caught it. About how do you scale this kind of community against the desire for church growth. That's what we seem to talk about a lot, right? We get preoccupied with greatness when really our call is to love and to be a witness, to live an alternative vision of community in our world, and to not give up on it. Friends, this fall we have some spiritual work of discernment to do as a congregation. We'll be continuing our Envisions 2020 planning, taking those core values that we identified last year along with our renewed mission, and looking at what are the nuts and bolts of our future as a congregation. We'll be looking at questions like, where will we live out this mission? How will we live out this mission? What do we need to do together and commit to together in order to live out this mission as this little small experiment, this community of faith called Visions United? So we're not going to take a lot of time in spirit gatherings for this, I promise. I know last year we spent a few on looking at things. Instead, we'll probably have some workshops and gatherings at other times to have the discussion and to make decisions. But from time to time, I am going to invite us in worship to explore the calling of those 4 values that we named last spring as being the core of who we are at Visions. Because those values, that's the foundation upon which we're going to be making our plans for the future. And those values, do you remember them? The first one? Well, that's our tagline. And at Go Open Doors is connected with extravagant openness. And Open Minds is connected with innovative spiritual growth. And Open Hands is connected with and Open Hearts is connected with. So friends, today as we regather and begin a new season together, we've talked a lot about welcome, right? So let's look at that value that we associate Open Doors or extravagant openness with. And this morning, I hope most of you got this little card. Did you get this little card? And if you didn't get one, when you leave today, I'm sure there's still some, please take one with you. We identified 4 particular ways that we're going to strive to live out this value of extravagant openness. Okay? Some of them reflect ways we've seen over the past 6 years that we've been living together. And some of them we haven't been perfect about, but they've been our desire. We're trying to live into them. So I'm going to invite you to read through with me what those 4 practices are about. So, welcoming the committed, the comfortable, and the curious. Everyone belongs here. That's quite a statement. Doing the right thing, engaging on comfortable ideas, leading
confusion, love over fear, resolution over conflict, respecting the diversity of people's ideas and beliefs.
And you know, friends, if we're going to find a path forward, that kind of openness is really important. Practicing means we're going to fail, which means there's going to need to be forgiveness with one another. But practicing love over fear, resolution over contact, respecting the diversity, not just of peoples, but of ideas and beliefs. If we're going to have honest conversation, which is part of discernment, if we're going to pray about this, that's really important. And fourth, seeking partnerships beyond our doors, trusting we can learn from others and work together for peace and justice. And my feeling as I've lived with these this summer is there's something in that has to be the secret for our future, those partnerships. So over the next month, I want you to take that card home. Put it up on your fridge. Put it on your table where you see it every day. I don't care where. Put it by your nightstand. Maybe it's the first thing you read in the morning, the last thing before you go to bed. Whatever you need to do to keep those in front of you. Okay? To consider them. To pray about them. And today, this is your invitation as you go forward from here with that card. I want you to consider which one of these practices, if you had to choose one, which one of these is especially for you? I mean, when you read it, you say, yes. You can think of concrete ways that we can live this out at Visions. Maybe it's your spiritual calling. Maybe there are words of encouragement and actions that you can share with your Visions family to help us practice what we preach. And then consider which one of these 4 practices challenges you the most, or you struggle with, just because of who you are. And look around our congregation in your mind's eye. And who comes to mind who's in our midst who you can say, wow, they're good at that? What do you have to learn? That's what you're praying about. What do I have to learn about that practice? And what can that person that I've called to mind, what can they teach me? Can they teach Visions about practicing extravagant openness in that way? So this is our call in the coming month to keep open doors and to practice extravagant openness, to consider and pray as we discern our future together, and as most importantly, as you seek to live the way of Jesus every day. Let's sing. Who is my mother? And I think those who feel able, we need a stretch at this point, I think. the invitation to generosity is an invitation to share of our time and our talents and our gifts for the upbuilding of community. So this is a time, if we have any announcements to share with the community, I'm going to invite us to share those. As I mentioned earlier, next Sunday we will have an all ages service and do registration for the Sunday school program. And at this point, to start off the fall, we have Ruth Flanagan and Linda Higgins who are going to help co-lead that, because Heather's found a new calling over here. And Sarah's a little bit busy right these days with a new little one. So spread the word, let people know next Sunday to come. And so you look like you have an announcement, Claudia.
Some of you hopefully noticed that when you came in this morning that on the right-hand wall, just at the bottom of the stairs, we finally have our defibrillator installed in its own fancy little case. I think we have to give a big round of applause to Peggy, because it's been her baby with all the proceeds from these last several yard sales have gone towards purchasing the defibrillator, because it is not a cheap machine to purchase. So many, many thanks to Peggy for your perseverance. It's one of those things that you have on hand and hopefully you never have to use. I also want to acknowledge the professional input that we got from Peter, because there was this choice of different models to get. So thank you to Peter and to John for getting the finances rolling on this one.
And to Fernand for installing it. And Anna, if you want to have an announcement?
Yes. UCW is going to start on Wednesday evening, and we're meeting for a potluck here downstairs at 5 o'clock. And any of the women in the congregation are more than welcome to join us. They're already invited to join us, so it should be a good evening. And on Saturday at Camp Tawasi, there is a UCW retreat, a women's retreat. It's for any women who would like to join us. And Sean is our esteemed leader at that event. She's the facilitator. And it starts at 9:30 on Saturday morning, and we'll go till about 3:30 in the afternoon. I have a couple of seats if anybody has, at least one left, I think. Two. I've got 2 seats left if anybody would like to join me. Further to Saturday, our UCW is hosting, and usually in the morning the host church provides some muffins, etc. So I'm just asking the UCW in advance. If you would think about it this week, we could use some muffins on Saturday. And lunch on Saturday is potluck as well, so if you're going to come down and join us, bring something along to share. I think that's it.
You'll have the oat cakes covered.
Last year, you remember that the Moncton Hospital School of Nursing hosted an event with Stephen Lewis. This year, we were doing it again, and our guest speaker will be Dr. Brian Goldberg, who is the CPC white coat, dark black heart. And the event is, I have limited numbers of tickets that are no charge, but it's October the 11th at the Wesleyan Center. So I have few. If you want one, let me know before because the deadline is on Saturday.
Okay. Pam?
We're having a great time getting food for the Canadian Food Grains Bank project. We now have 56 bottles of mustard beans. Half are gluten-free, half are the regulars. Chow and sweet. $10 relish. $1 million relish. Big difference. That's right. She's not good with numbers. And sweet corn relish is good, but I think not as well. So I gotta thank the love of my life over there, that Norm. Boy, he's a grower. So here's a little story, I came to get some beans, and he said, I got beans for you today, Pam. And we go up to the building. I never saw so many wires in my life.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, I bet. Anyway, and we sit down and he brings out a bag, and he fills one of my shopping bags. And then he said, would you like some more? And I said, well, I suppose I could use some more. Well, why not? Well, I wound up with so many beans, just so many beans. And now it's going to be cucumbers to make our mustard pickles. So Norm's a real great guy, and this is a real great congregation, and I hope that we're going to raise $1,000 for the Canadian Food Grains Bank. Wouldn't that be wonderful?
We're going to hear more about the results of that and over the coming month and after Thanksgiving. Okay. And so we bring forward the offering of our gifts that have been given today, as well as those that we have given by par, and we dedicate them to Jesus' ministry of love as we sing together, Open My Heart. For our community of prayer, let's just take a few moments and name aloud those things that we carry in our hearts this day, and then we'll move into a few moments of silence, and I'll close with a spoken prayer. And so as we gather in prayer this day, what's on your heart and mind in the world around us or in the lives of those you love that you'd like us to remember in prayer, to hold in prayer?
My sister Miami.
All those in the way of the hurricanes that are going.
Especially those on the islands in the Caribbean that have been devastated.
My brother George.
Students going back to school and university.
Kara's son and daughter-in-law. Those frightened by the white supremacist movement.
Those in the LGBTQ plus 2 communities.
Jane, Sharon, and Vicar. The family of Ellen and George.
All those with disabilities who may feel they don't have a voice, or they don't know how to have a voice.
First Nations communities in northern Manitoba that have been evacuated over the last several days because of wildfires, and the communities in British Columbia still affected, and the creatures affected. You hear so much about the hurricanes and flooding on this continent, but of course, in the past weeks, the floods in parts of Southeast Asia that continue to cause hardship and loss of life and property, and there's about 40 million people in India, Nepal, and Bangladesh that have had to be evacuated. course, hold other persons that we know, that we hold in our heart who may be grieving, who are struggling with illness, who find themselves in hospital or in homes of special care. And so let's bring all these concerns that we've heard and hold them together in a moment of silence. Spirit, open our hearts to the joy and pain of living. As you love, may we love in receiving and in giving. Spirit, open our hearts that we may live and care in the way of Jesus, in whose name we pray together. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. The light has been burning in our midst. And now we change it so that we may carry it out into the world. For together we are called to be light, called to pray for peace, called to work for justice, called to be community for each other, and a witness, a beacon of hope in our world. We go with this blessing of song. May it be so.